I woke to the sound of my phone vibrating, not once, not twice, but a continuous staccato that rattled on the glass of my nightstand. Too many notifications. The kind you don't want to see. At first, I thought it was another board update, another late-night decision chain from my wife's empire trickling down into my life. But the moment my blurred eyes focused on the screen, I saw it. Screenshots. A group chat. My name in bold letters, followed by lines of ridicule. Has the CEO's pet dog woke up yet? Imagine being married and still not knowing the truth. He really thinks she loves him. Cute. The laughter emojis stacked like knives. My thumb scrolled faster than my brain could process. Each message is worse than the last. She owns him, body, mind, even his memory. He doesn't even know about the kids. Wait until he finds out, if he ever does. A hollow chill spread through my chest. My pulse hammered in my ears. I couldn't breathe, not properly. I sat up in bed, sheets clinging to my sweat-damp skin, staring at the screen as if it could explain itself. But all it did was show me how the people I saw every day, the assistants, the directors, the so-called friends of our circle, saw me as a joke. Worse than a joke, a puppet. A blind man married to power and too weak to even notice. My first thought wasn't even about them. It was about her. My wife. The CEO. The woman who walked into rooms and made men twice her age stumble over their words. The woman who told me once, in a rare moment of softness, that she chose me because I was the only one who looked at her like she wasn't made of stone. So why was I reading words that made it sound like she never chose me at all? I scrolled further. He doesn't even remember what she did. He's not supposed to remember. That's why she keeps him close. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor. I bent forward, clutching my head, fighting the nausea rising in my throat. Not supposed to remember. The phrase looped in my mind like a broken record. I tried to anchor myself to something real, something solid. I thought of the ocean, the dream that had carried me through years of sterile boardrooms and luxury prisons. The endless water that couldn't be owned, couldn't be caged. I had promised myself once I'd stand on that shore, free. But here I was, drowning on dry land. My hands shook as I grabbed the phone again. Another message popped in while I watched. Careful, he's been asking questions lately. A shadow moved across the doorway of our penthouse bedroom. My wife's silhouette is framed in the soft glow of city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She stood there in her silk robe, arms crossed, eyes sharp as glass. "You're up early," she said, voice smooth, measured, as if she hadn't just been the subject of my unraveling world. My throat tightened. The words crawled out like broken glass. "What is this?" I shoved the phone toward her, screen still glowing with the chat. My breath was ragged, heart thrashing against my ribs. She glanced at it. Just glanced. And then, she smiled. Not the warm kind, not the rare softness I once believed in. A different smile. Thin. Controlled. Dangerous. "People talk," she said simply. "You shouldn't listen." That was it. No denial. No outrage. No fumbling attempt to explain away the poison I just swallowed. She stood there, calm, as if the words meant nothing, as if my entire sense of reality wasn't crumbling at her feet. And the worst part? When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. Morning light seeped through the gaps in the curtains, painting the walls in thin lines of gold, but there was nothing warm about it. I sat upright in bed, staring at the empty half where she should have been. The sheets were cool, untouched, as if she hadn't slept beside me at all. My phone lay heavy in my hand. The group chat still glowed across the screen, a venomous archive I couldn't erase. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words. "She owns him. He doesn't even remember." Her voice from last night echoed in my head too. Calm, almost bored. "People talk. You shouldn't listen." But it wasn't her words that haunted me most. It was the way she didn't deny it. Not once. I pressed my palms to my face, trying to steady my breathing. Yet behind my eyelids came flashes, flickers of memory, or maybe nightmares. Nights where I stumbled into our penthouse, dizzy for no reason. Moments where I lost hours, entire evenings swallowed by fog. And mornings where I woke up in clothes I didn't remember putting on. I thought of the pills. Small, white tablets in a glass dish by her side of the bed. She'd pressed them into my palm with a smile, whispering, "For the migraines. For the stress." I'd never questioned her. Why would I? She was the CEO, the woman who could bend entire markets with a phone call. If she told me it was medicine, I believed it. Belief was easier than suspicion. But now, my stomach tightened, sour. I dragged myself from the bed, the penthouse too quiet, too pristine, as if it were staged for someone else's life. The city skyline stretched wide beyond the glass, skyscrapers cutting into the morning clouds. Everyone down there moved with purpose, chasing something. Freedom, maybe. Escape. The ocean came to mind again. Always the ocean. Wide, endless, untouchable. I used to dream of standing at its edge with nothing but the horizon ahead. No contracts. No boardrooms. No chains. But right now, I feel shackled to something invisible. My memories weren't mine. My body, maybe even my choices, weren't mine. I opened her office drawer. She never let me near it, but she was gone, and desperation dulled my fear. Stacks of hospital bills lay neatly folded. Different clinics, all vague: neurological observation, stress episode management, rehabilitative monitoring. Dates blurred together. None of them made sense. At the bottom was a pharmacy receipt. The drug name was smudged by a coffee stain, but I could make out part of it: Pam. My chest constricted. As I stared, something surfaced, a flash. I was lying in a hospital bed, fluorescent lights burning my eyes. She sat beside me, stroking my hand. Her face was blurred in the memory, but her lips moved. I could almost hear it. A whisper. "You won't remember this anyway." I staggered back, breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled so badly the papers slipped and scattered across the floor. A knock on the door startled me. Sharp, rhythmic, too deliberate to be hers. I shoved the papers back into the drawer, heart racing, and pulled myself together. It wasn't our home's front door. It was the office. Later that morning, the boardroom gleamed with its usual sterile perfection. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the table in white light. Executives shuffled papers, murmured about markets, dividends, and new acquisitions. She sat at the head, immaculate as ever, her eyes skimming the room like a queen surveying her court. I sat a few chairs down, silent. My mind wasn't here. It was tangled in hospital bills, in whispers I wasn't supposed to remember. That's when he leaned in. The vice president. Always lurking at the edges of her empire, his ambition barely hidden under expensive suits and sharper smiles. His cologne was heavy, suffocating. He tilted his head toward me, lips close to my ear. "You really don't remember, do you?" The words froze my blood. The invitation wasn't mine. It never was. By the time the car dropped me at the Glass Tower restaurant, I knew I had no choice. She had arranged the dinner, of course. She always arranged everything. And the moment I stepped into the rooftop lounge, with its panoramic view of the city pulsing below, I understood this wasn't a dinner. It was a theater. She sat there already, in a black dress that cut sharp against the lights. Beside her, lounging far too comfortably, was him, the vice president. The rival. His suit is a shade darker than his smile. "Darling," she said smoothly as I approached. "We didn't want to start without you." We. The word burned. I sat. The table gleamed under candlelight. Plates arranged like art, wine poured before I even asked. The air smelled of rosemary and power. The conversation started light. Stock prices, expansion markets, the usual chess moves of her empire. She spoke with ease, her words flowing like champagne. The rival nodded along, interjecting just enough to seem important, never enough to threaten her dominance. But beneath it all, there was an undercurrent. Every so often, when her hand brushed the stem of her glass, his eyes followed. When he made a quip about market loyalties, she laughed just a little too quickly. And when I tried to cut in, about the mergers, about decisions that would affect me directly, they slid right past me, like I wasn't even there. "Try the sea bass," she said, ordering before I could speak. "It's his favorite," she told the waiter, though I hadn't eaten fish in months. I clenched my fists under the table. The rival leaned in, raising his glass. "To loyalty," he said, eyes flicking between us. "And to those who stand by us, even when they don't know everything." My jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled, slow, deliberate. "Only that trust is a rare currency these days." My wife's hand brushed his arm, a soft warning masked as affection. He sat back, satisfied. The wine tasted sour on my tongue. My gaze drifted past them, to the endless city beyond the glass. Lights blinking like stars caught in concrete. I imagined the ocean instead, dark, endless, unbroken. Somewhere out there, waves kept rolling, uncaring of empires or secrets. Freedom existed. Just not here. Not for me. Your health, the rival said suddenly, breaking my reverie. Better now. Those migraines. Stress can be dangerous. My fork clattered against the plate. How do you know about that? For the first time, her smile faltered. Just slightly. Her eyes cut to him, sharp as a blade. He only smirked. We're family here, aren't we? I pushed back from the table, breath tight. If you've got something to say, say it. Silence stretched, heavy, oppressive. She spoke before he could. Darling, sit, please. You're overreacting. Overreacting. The word stung worse than the laughter in the group chat. I forced myself to finish the meal in silence, every bite like ash. When it was over, she lingered behind to pay, her smile already plastered back on for the staff. He walked with me toward the exit, his cologne clinging like smoke. Just as the night air hit us, he leaned close enough that his words slipped directly into my ear. She drugged you for years, he whispered. I can prove it. The chandeliers dripped light like molten gold, scattering across sequined gowns and polished tuxedos. Cameras flashed in the lobby, laughter rose in waves, and champagne flowed as if the entire city had come to bow at her feet. The annual gala wasn't just an event. It was her stage. My wife swept into the ballroom like a goddess, every step measured, every glance calculated. Applause followed her as though it had been rehearsed. People parted around her, eager to be noticed, terrified to be ignored. And right beside her, him. The vice president. Always in orbit, never too far. He leaned in when she laughed, whispered comments that drew her practiced smile. The crowd ate it up, the perfect CEO and her trusted second-in-command. I trailed a few steps behind, a shadow dressed in a black suit. To them, I wasn't a man. I was an accessory. A name in the footnotes. Her husband. I tried to mingle, tried to let the small talk wash over me, but every conversation circled back to her. She's brilliant. She's untouchable. How lucky you must feel. The word stung, sweetened poison dripping down my throat. Eventually, I slipped toward the edge of the room, away from the glint of the cameras, away from the curated laughter. That's when I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed with feeds overflowing with her. Hashtags, photos, smiling faces pressed close to hers. In every image, she was radiant, magnetic. I was either absent or blurred in the background. Her empire, her night, her mask. My thumb hovered over her profile. For years I had watched her shine, convincing myself that standing beside her was enough. But tonight, with him whispering in her ear, with her empire celebrating her brilliance while I drowned in silence, something broke. I pressed block. A small, simple act. Petty. Childish, maybe. But the rush of defiance lit through me like fire. For the first time in years, I chose something for myself. A private rebellion in a public cage. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, exhaling as though I had surfaced from underwater. At first, nothing changed. The music swelled, couples spun across the marble floor, servers glided past with trays of champagne. She laughed at something the rival whispered, tilting her head back in effortless grace. And then she paused. It was subtle, almost imperceptible. Her phone buzzed in her clutch, or maybe someone leaned in and murmured. Whatever it was, she knew. Her head turned across the room, her eyes scanning until they found me. The smile stayed fixed on her lips for the crowd. But her eyes, God, her eyes, froze me in place. Cold, razor sharp, dangerous. Every laugh, every cheer around us dulled to nothing. The entire ballroom blurred until there was only her gaze, cutting across the distance like a blade. And in that silent stare, I knew one thing with a certainty that hollowed my chest. I had just declared war. The office felt different after the gala. Whispers clung to the glass walls, hushed tones trailing me as I stepped off the elevator. I could feel their eyes. Colleagues, assistants, even the interns pretending to scroll on tablets while glancing up. And there they were. My wife and the vice president, standing side by side in the lobby as if they'd rehearsed it. She radiated authority in a tailored suit, he hovered at her shoulder like a shadow that smiled too much. Her hand rested briefly on his arm as she spoke to a cluster of directors. My chest tightened at the sight. They looked seamless. United. And me? I was the outsider, reduced to nothing more than the silent man walking past them. By the time the boardroom meeting started, I was already frayed. The long table gleamed beneath the sterile lights. Papers shuffled, Slides clicked across the screen, markets and mergers were discussed like chess pieces moved by invisible hands. But I couldn't focus. Not when he kept speaking for her. Not when she let him. At first, I bit my tongue. I tried to sit still. I tried to breathe. But when he leaned forward, pointing at the presentation with casual authority, referring to our strategy, something inside me cracked. Our strategy. I cut in, my voice sharp. Since when do you speak for her? The room froze. Heads turned. His smile didn't falter. I don't speak for anyone, he said smoothly. I'm just here to help. Help? I scoffed, louder than I meant. You're everywhere she is. Every meeting, every event. Maybe you should just sit in my chair while you're at it. A ripple of discomfort moved around the table. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else scribbled notes furiously, avoiding eye contact. The rival leaned back, utterly calm. You seem stressed. Again. The word lodged in my gut like a knife. Again. He turned his gaze to the others. You all know how hard he's been working, how much strain he's under. Those migraines, the hospital visits. We can't blame him for snapping. Laughter almost bubbled in the back of my throat, bitter and hollow. He was framing me as unwell, unstable. And the worst part? No one contradicted him. I turned to her. My wife. My anchor, my proof I wasn't losing my mind. Are you going to let him talk about me like that? Her expression didn't waver. Cold, pristine, carved from marble. He's earned his place, she said, voice steady, carrying across the table. You're embarrassing yourself. The silence after that was deafening. No one looked at me. Not directly. They stared at the papers, at their glasses of water, at anything but me. I was no longer her husband in their eyes. I was the unstable man unraveling in public. I sank back in my chair, heart pounding in my ears. My throat ached, but no words came. She and the rival resumed the meeting, their voices weaving together, seamless once more. And me? I faded into the background, invisible, unwanted. By the time I left the office that night, humiliation clung to me heavier than my suit. I walked through the city in a haze, headlights smearing into streaks of white, conversations around me nothing but muffled echoes. When I reached the penthouse, the lights were off. Silence. She wasn't home. But something was waiting. A plain folder slipped under the door. No name. No note. Just wait. I knelt, hands shaking as I flipped it open. Inside, hospital documents. Stacks of them. But where my name should have been, there were only thick black bars. Redacted. Blotted out, as if I'd never existed at all. My breath caught. Someone was hiding me. The folder lay open on my lap, its pages spread like open wounds. Lines of black ink slashed through where my name should have been. Patient, notes. I couldn't stop staring at it. My life, erased in clinical strokes. The city hummed outside the window, neon lights flickering against the glass. It was close to midnight when my phone buzzed on the table, the sound sharp in the silence. Her name lit the screen. For a long moment, I just stared. My thumb hovered. Every instinct screamed not to answer. And yet, I did. Hello. My voice cracked. Darling. Her tone was soft, almost trembling. A voice I hadn't heard in months. Not the CEO, not the woman of marble and steel, but the one who used to curl against me in the dark, whispering dreams of forever. I miss you, she said. Tonight felt wrong without you by my side. My chest tightened. Against all reason, the sound of her like this made me ache. It was too easy to believe her, to imagine that maybe behind all the control, she did still see me. But then her words shifted, quiet silk turning to coiled rope. You overreacted today, she murmured. At the office. Everyone could see how fragile you've been. That's not like you. That's not the man I chose. I gripped the phone tighter. Fragile. The same word the rival had used. I'm not fragile, I said, but it sounded weak even to my own ears. You've been unwell before, she continued smoothly. The migraines, the fainting. You forget things. You need me to take care of you. The folder burned hot against my legs. I wanted to scream that I knew, that I'd seen the redacted files, that I wasn't imagining the gaps in my memory. But my tongue felt heavy. She sighed, soft as velvet. You know I only do what's best for you. Without me, you'd lose yourself completely. You wouldn't survive. The tenderness in her voice was worse than shouting. It was a knife hidden in silk, a cage painted to look like home. Why are you telling me this? I was forced out. Because I don't want to lose you, she said. But if you keep pushing me away, think of what people will say. Think of what will happen if they decide you're unfit. Unfit. My blood ran cold. There it was, the threat buried in sweetness. She wasn't promising reconciliation. She was reminding me she owned the story. That if she wanted, she could paint me as broken, unstable. I pulled the phone from my ear, ready to hang up. But then I froze. A sound, faint, in the background of the call. A man's voice. Low. Calm. Too familiar. The rival. My breath caught. And then the line went dead. The first mistake I made that morning was opening my phone. Sleep still clung to me, heavy and stale, but the glowing screen pulled me under like a riptide. Notifications stacked one over the other, endless red dots, tags, and buzzing pings. And there it was. The post. A single photo, crisp under the ballroom's chandelier light. My wife stood laughing, head tilted toward the rival. His hand rested against her lower back, not too close to scandalize, but close enough that anyone could feel the intimacy leaking from the image. The caption gutted me. Power is built on loyalty. The CEO and her right hand, unstoppable together. I stared at the words until my eyes burned. The comments were worse. Finally, someone who deserves her. He was always just a prop. Her husband. He should be grateful she even keeps him around. My chest hollowed. Every laugh line, every heart emoji was another nail hammered into the coffin of who I thought I was. To them, I wasn't betrayed. I was irrelevant. I set the phone down, but my reflection in the black screen sneered back at me. Hollow-eyed, fragile, disposable. No. I clenched my fists until my nails dug into my palms. That was the role she'd written for me, the quiet husband, the broken man she could control. And the rival, waiting in the wings, stepped into the light with her as if he had been there all along. But I wasn't going to play my part anymore. I opened my gallery. Deleted the wedding photos. Deleted the smiling candid shots she had staged for the press. Deleted the dinners, the anniversaries, the staged perfection. One by one, I cut pieces of her from my digital life, until my phone felt lighter in my hand. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt air fill my lungs properly. I wasn't free yet, but I had taken the first swing at my cage. The buzz came unexpectedly. A private message. David. I hadn't spoken to him in months. A loyal friend from before the empire swallowed me whole. I saw the post, he wrote. Don't believe what you're seeing. The truth runs deeper than you think. Check this. A file blinked at the bottom of the message. I hesitated. My thumb hovered. My stomach twisted. Then I tapped it. The video is loaded, grainy, handheld. Our kitchen. My kitchen. Me slumped at the table, head heavy in my hands. She entered the frame, smiling faintly, tender in the way she looked at me. She held a glass in one hand, a syringe in the other. And with delicate ease, she injected something clear into the drink. I watched myself lift my head weakly, unaware. I watched her place the glass in front of me, her hand brushing my cheek as if in comfort. I watched myself drink. The video ended. My breath stopped. The folder of redacted hospital files on my desk suddenly made perfect, horrifying sense. And all I could think, as the screen went black, was one thought beating like a drum in my skull. She's been drugging me. All along. I didn't sleep after the video. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand, delicate, steady, slipping the needle into my drink as if it were an act of love. By dawn, something inside me cracked. Not in despair, not in fear, but in rage so sharp it made my chest ache. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to her number. Delete. Her name vanished like it had never existed. I opened our chat thread, years of conversations, of confessions, of her soothing lies layered like silk over poison. My thumb hovered, then pressed delete conversation. The thread collapsed into nothing. I went further. Photo albums. Cloud backups. Every trace of her face, her voice, her empire carved into my devices, I erased it all. Each swipe was a cut through an invisible chain, each deletion a gasp of clean air. For the first time, silence filled the phone. No buzzing, no red dots demanding my attention. Just me. I opened a travel site and booked the first flight I saw, a coastal town 2 hours away. Small, quiet, unimportant. The kind of place where the sea stretched endless and no one cared about CEOs or their broken husbands. Packing was easy. A bag, clothes, a notebook. I left the expensive suits she bought me hanging in the closet. Left the cufflinks she gifted me for anniversaries. Left everything that tied me to her curated world. When the phone rang again, her name didn't appear, only unknown caller. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. It rang again. I let it. The third time, I answered. Her voice slid through the line, silk wrapped around iron. You think you can walk away from me? I didn't reply. Everything you are, she continued, calm but sharp, exists because I allow it. Do you understand? Without me, you're. I ended the call. Then hurled the phone against the wall. It shattered into pieces, glass scattering across the floor like fragments of the life I was abandoning. By the time the driver arrived, one of her men, expressionless, insisting he'd been sent to take me to the office, I was ready. I'm not going, I told him. Your wife said. She's not my wife, I snapped, shoving past him. He grabbed my arm, reflexive, but I twisted free, rage burning hot and sharp. Touch me again, and you'll regret it. He stepped back. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. For the first time, I wasn't the weak man they thought I was. David's message buzzed on my spare phone as I hailed a cab. Run while you can. I'll cover you. I smiled, bitter and grateful. At the airport, the atmosphere felt lighter. Travelers rushed past me, strangers with their own lives, their own problems. No one stared. No one whispered. For the first time in years, I felt invisible in the best way. I passed through security. Ticket in hand. Gate ahead. My chest loosened, as if every step was pulling me further from her, from them, from the nightmare. Then I felt the presence. I turned, and there he was. The rival. Perfect suit, calm smile, standing too close. He leaned in, close enough that his breath brushed my ear. You'll never escape us, he whispered. Not with what's in your blood. The words sank into me like ice water, colder than anything my wife had ever said. Blood. What did he mean? Before I could ask, he walked away, blending into the crowd as if he had never been there at all. And I stood frozen at the gate, boarding pass in my shaking hand, a single thought gnawing at my mind. What's in my blood? The ocean didn't speak in words. It spoke in echoes. When I first stepped onto the shore of the coastal town, the salt air filled my lungs like medicine I hadn't known I needed. The crash of waves was steady, endless, a rhythm that felt older than my pain, older than the lies. I stood barefoot in the sand, watching the tide pull and return, and I thought, the ocean remembers me. Even if I've forgotten myself. For days, I lived in that rhythm. In the mornings, I ran along the shoreline, each step pounding against the wet earth as if I were running out of her shadow. Afternoons, I sat in a small cafe, scribbling in a notebook, ideas, fragments, plans for the future. Not her future. Not her empire. Mine. Sometimes, I sketched out business concepts, the kind of ventures I used to dream of before she clipped my wings and sold me the illusion of partnership. Other times, I just wrote words. Sentences without purpose. Fragments of memory. A woman at the cafe smiled at me once. Just a stranger. She didn't know my story, didn't look at me like I was her husband or the broken one. She looked at me like a man. That alone was enough to remind me I wasn't invisible. Every evening, I walked back to my small rented apartment and cooked simple meals. No polished chefs. No silver trays. Just me, a stove, and the sound of waves echoing outside. And slowly, piece by piece, I began to feel like myself again. But the past had its way of crawling back through cracks. I kept a spare phone, not connected to her, not tied to old contacts, but I still scrolled through news, through whispers on social media. That's when I saw it. Her empire, immaculate, invincible, faltering. A cancelled press event. A shaky earnings call, board members stiff in their silence. Leaks of internal conflict. And always, his name, the rival, slipping through headlines like a shadow. He was there beside her, more visible than ever. A part of me felt vindicated. She wasn't untouchable. Without me, maybe her empire wasn't as perfect as she pretended. But another part whispered, she doesn't fall. She plots. If cracks show, it's because she wants them to. I couldn't shake his voice, either. The rival at the airport, his words colder than the sea air, not with what's in your blood. What did he mean? I replayed my scattered memories. The hospital visits, the white walls, the unexplained pills she pressed into my hand. It's just for your health, she'd say with that calm, unquestionable smile. But health for what? For whose design? At night, I sat awake, the ocean outside my window. My notebook open, pen hovering, words refusing to form. Then it happened. The ping of a notification shattered the silence. I froze. My accounts were clean, my numbers wiped. No one should have been able to reach me. But there it was. A message. From her. I stared at the screen, my throat dry, my chest pounding. The message was short. Just one line. Our children are asking for you. I read it again. And again. Children. Mine. Hers. Ours. My hands trembled, the phone slick with sweat. The sea outside roared louder, like it already knew the answer I didn't. And in that moment, all my newfound freedom felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I didn't expect to see her in the ocean town. But there she was. I spotted her across the boardwalk, standing against the silver horizon. As if she'd been carved out of the same cold light that shimmered on the waves. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. Every strand of hair in place. And I knew immediately, this wasn't a chance. She had come for me. My pulse kicked up, but it wasn't the same helpless rush I used to feel under her gaze. I'd run through waves. I'd rebuilt parts of myself. The sea had taught me to breathe again. So when she walked toward me, heels clicking against the wooden planks, eyes never leaving mine, I didn't move. I let her come. Running away suits you poorly, she said. Her voice was calm, like she was ordering coffee, not addressing the husband she had drugged and abandoned. I'm not running anymore. My voice didn't shake. Not from you. Her smile didn't falter, but I saw something in her eyes twitch, irritation, maybe surprise. You've lost weight, she said softly, scanning me like property she still owned. You look awake. I let the silence stretch between us. The waves crashed behind me, a reminder I wasn't hers to command anymore. Finally, I asked, why now? She tilted her head, her smile sharpening. Because our children are asking for you. The words hit like a stone in the gut. Children. Mine. Ours. Or another piece in her endless game. They're not, I started, then stopped, unsure of the truth even in my own mouth. Her hand reached out, brushing invisible dust from my sleeve. Family is more binding than freedom. You'll learn that again. I pulled back. No. What I've learned is that chains disguised as love are still chains. For the first time, her smile cracked. Her eyes flashed with something cold, dangerous. She leaned closer, whispering, you'll come back. You always do. And then, a shadow cut across the light. The rival. He emerged from the crowd with that predatory ease, his suit crisp, his smirk practiced. People moved aside without realizing it, as if he carried gravity itself with him. Interrupting something? He asked, his voice smooth, mocking. My wife's composure stiffened. She turned slightly, her smile returning, but tighter now. You weren't invited. He ignored her. His eyes locked onto me, and the air between us thickened. I see you've been enjoying the sea air, he said. Freedom looks good on you. Temporary, though. I didn't answer. I couldn't read whether he was here to protect her or to wound her. Maybe both. He circled slightly, like a predator measuring distance. You still don't know everything, do you? His tone was almost amused. My wife's jaw tightened. Enough, Adrian. He leaned closer to me, close enough that his cologne and his words cut into my skin. Those kids. His whisper was a blade. They're yours. And you never consented to them. The boardwalk seemed to tilt beneath my feet. The ocean roared louder than ever, 1,000 voices in my ears. My wife's eyes froze on mine. No denial. No correction. Just silence. And in that silence, I felt the ground vanish. She found me again before I left the pier. I'd barely gotten the rival's words out of my head when I heard the sharp click of her heels behind me. I didn't turn. The ocean was safer to look at than her. You're not walking away this time, she said. Her voice didn't carry its usual polish. There was an edge, brittle, uneven. I turned slowly. For the first time, she didn't look untouchable. The perfect lines of her suit were wrinkled from the evening air. Her lipstick smudged faintly at the corner. And in her eyes, there was something raw, something feral. We need to talk, she said, and it wasn't a request. I almost laughed. Now you want to talk. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Don't make me the villain. Not after everything. I felt my jaw clench. You drugged me. You let him, my words caught. You made me a stranger to my own life. Her eyes flickered, wet but hard. You don't understand. I had to. You think you were free before. No. You were always leaving, always looking for the exit. I saw it every time you looked at the stars, at the horizon. You were planning to disappear long before I touched a pill. Her voice cracked on that last word, and suddenly, she wasn't the CEO who owned rooms with a glance. She was a woman unspooling, clawing for something slipping out of her grasp. You talk about leaving like it's a crime, I said. It is, she snapped, then softened, her tone trembling. Not to me. Not to us. Don't you remember how we built everything together? Our home, our empire, our children. My chest tightened at the word. Children. Were they real? Were they mine? She must have seen my hesitation because she pounced. They're asking for you. Every night. Where's Dad? When is he coming home? You tear their hearts apart just to, what? Chase some dreams by the ocean. Her voice was soaked in venom and sorrow, twisted into a weapon meant to pull me back. I'm not chasing anything, I said slowly. I'm remembering who I was before you caged me. Her lip trembled. She laughed, bitter and broken, pacing in front of me. Caged you? You think love is freedom? Love is choosing someone, even when it hurts. Even when they want to run. She stopped, breathing hard. Her eyes glistened with tears she didn't want to shed. I kept you. Because I knew you'd leave. You always had one foot out the door. I shook my head. That's not love. That's fear. She grabbed my wrist, her nails biting into my skin. Fear is better than emptiness. Don't you get it? Without you, there's nothing. Without you, I would fall apart. Her breath came ragged, her face inches from mine. And then it came, the words that burned through every wall I'd built. I drugged you, she whispered, tears spilling now. Because I couldn't let you leave. You were always going to leave me. The ocean roared behind us, but her confession was louder. Her grip trembled. My heart thundered. And for a moment, I didn't know if I was staring at the woman I once loved, or the stranger who had destroyed me. The ocean became my clock. Sunrise over the water told me when to begin, the tides told me when to breathe, and the stars told me when it was time to rest. For the first time in years, my body wasn't bound to her schedule, her pills, or her demands. I woke up clear. I worked with my own hands. I answered to no one but myself. And strangely, I thrived. David rented a workspace near the coast, and most afternoons he'd drop by with coffee and that grin of his, the one that said he still couldn't believe I'd actually broken free. Sometimes Anna came too, a quiet presence, more mentor than lover yet, though I could feel something deeper growing in the silence between us. She didn't ask questions about my past. She only asked about my future. And for once, I had answers. I was writing again. Drafting plans, chasing the dream I had buried beneath her empire. My thoughts no longer scattered like glass shards, they flowed, sharp, steady, mine. The shadows of my wife's world still flickered at the edges. Articles about her slipping reputation, anonymous whispers of a hostile board. David slid me links sometimes, smirking. She's losing ground, he'd say. And I'd nod, not out of victory, but because I finally understood, it wasn't my fight anymore. One evening, standing at the edge of the water, I slipped off the ring I hadn't worn in months. I'd kept it in my pocket, a weight I couldn't explain. I stared at it under the fading light, the perfect circle, the promise turned into a cage. With one breath, I threw it into the sea. The splash was small, but inside, it was thunder. You don't own me anymore, I whispered. The tide took it. The ocean didn't look back. For the first time, I felt clean. I thought that was the end. But endings, in her world, never came clean. It was David who broke the illusion, bursting through the studio door late at night. His face was pale, his phone clutched in his hand. You need to see this, he said, voice unsteady. I frowned, reaching for the device. The headline glared up at me, black letters screaming on a glowing screen. CEO initiates custody action, claims husband unfit, children to be raised solely under corporate trust. My stomach twisted. The words blurred. And then my phone buzzed. A message notification. Her name on the screen. I opened it, hands trembling. If you won't come back for me, you will for them. The ocean outside was suddenly too loud. The final break wasn't clean after all. She still had one weapon left. The call came just past midnight. Her voice, honey laced with venom, slid through the receiver. We need to talk. Not as enemies. For the children. I should have hung up. I should have let silence answer. But something in the way she said children clawed into me, and against every instinct, I agreed. The next day, David drove me to the address. A glass-walled tower in the city, sterile and gleaming under the gray sky. Not her office, not our old home, something in between. A stage. Inside, the room was carefully arranged. A boardroom stripped of its sharpness, dressed in warmth it didn't own. Toys scattered neatly across a rug, as if children had just been there. But they weren't. They never were. And then she walked in. Perfect. Always perfect. Designer suit, hair coiled in a crown of control, eyes lined in power. But beneath it, cracks. Her steps weren't as smooth, her breath a fraction unsteady. She sat across from me, folding her hands. "You look different," she said softly. "Healthier. Stronger." I didn't answer. She leaned forward, voice trembling now. "I know what I did. I know I hurt you. But everything I did for us. For the family. For the dream." My jaw clenched. "Our dream. Or yours." Her words tumbled faster. She cycled through every weapon in her arsenal. "Anger, you think you're better without me? You're nothing without what I gave you. Sorrow, I wake up every night, reaching for you, and you're gone. Guilt, the children cry for their father. Do you hear them? Promises, no more lies. No more pills. Just us, fresh, clean, new." Her mask cracked completely then. Tears streaked her perfect face. Her voice broke into a raw whisper. "I loved you. I still love you. I can't lose you." The words should have cut me open. Once, they would have. But sitting there, I felt nothing. Not because I was empty, but because I was finally whole. My mind replayed the years, the bitter taste of the pills, the gaps in my memory, the mornings stolen from me. And then it replayed the sea, the sky, the way my hands had finally started to create again. For the first time, I wasn't living inside her cage. I leaned forward, calm, steady. "You're right," I said. "You can't lose me." Her eyes lit up, desperate hope surging. "Because you never had me." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. She stared at me, broken, her lips trembling as though she might scream or collapse or both. And I stood, pushing the chair back slowly. I didn't look at the toys on the floor, or the false warmth of the room. I looked only at her. My voice was final, cold, and clear. "You stole my past, but you'll never touch my future." The words hung between us like a blade. Her face froze, every crack in her mask splitting at once, rage, despair, disbelief flashing in her eyes. And then I walked away. The ocean stretched out before me, endless and alive, the horizon dissolving into light. Morning mist curled above the waves, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without weight on my chest. I dug my feet into the sand, the tide pulling gently at my ankles, the water cool and steady. Once, I had feared this vastness, afraid it would swallow me, drown me the way my wife's control had drowned the years. But now, standing here, I understood, it wasn't here to take me. It was here to carry me. The sound of waves filled the silence I used to stuff with pills and lies. Each crash against the shore felt like a heartbeat, not hers, not ours, but mine. Behind me, life was beginning again. David was still the anchor he had always been, steady and loyal when the world turned against me. There were new faces too, a mentor who reminded me of what my dream truly was, a woman whose laughter wasn't a weapon but a light. Together, they formed something she could never fabricate, a life that was real. And my dream, it wasn't just alive. It was awake. The long nights wasted in confusion had been replaced with creation, with work that burned in my veins, with a vision that no drug could cloud again. I was building, finally, not for her empire, but for mine. Still, shadows lingered. I'd hear whispers of her, a bored seat lost, a company slipping through her hands, eyes that once commanded fear now avoided in corridors. She was fading, but not gone. Every so often, her name would appear on my phone. Calls. Messages. Words that dripped with the same poison as before. "We could try again. The children miss you. You'll regret this when it's too late." But she was already too late. I turned back to the sea, letting the sound rise, letting it bury her voice beneath the tide. I thought of the man I used to be, drugged, blurred, bound by her will. And then I thought of the man I was now, awake, whole, free. The difference was as vast as the horizon. I smiled, breathing in salt and sunlight, and let the waves speak louder than her memory ever could. She still tries to call sometimes. But when I hear the waves, I don't even remember her voice anymore.